the Gainesville transaction coordinator. That's Gainesville, Virginia. Today, I wanted to show you how SkySlope and ZipForms are now integrated and working together. This, would like to say it's kind of new. However, this integration has been there for many months now, maybe even close to a year, but they're constantly trying to improve it. And so if you have not seen it, or maybe you tried it once and the integration, it just wasn't working well for you, I would encourage you to look again. And I hope that this will prove to be a time saver, because essentially that was their hope. SkySlope went and integrated with ZipForms on a more kind of national level, and they're hoping that that saves time for agents inputting transactions into SkySlope. So first, you want to log into SkySlope. There are two ways. Of course, you can go right into SkySlope like I'm doing now, or you can always go to the agent dashboard on c21nm.com, log in at the bottom, and there is a button for SkySlope, and it'll take you right to the site. And then you'll have to log in knowing your credentials. This is definitely one training focus more for agents who are inputting themselves. I know that there are agents out there that are not inputting, but this makes it, this process hopefully will encourage maybe others that were, or some that have shied away from it, encourage them to go ahead and try this out and see, just, try the system again, basically. Your view is going to be, sorry, from an admin point of view, I apologize, some of the buttons are a little bit different. For instance, you have buttons that say create listing and create transaction, so it is going to be a little bit different. However, this is after the new look, so the way SkySlope looks right now is how you're seeing on the screen. So first, you want to make sure that you're actually integrated, that the integration is set up. So at the very top, you'll see your name. You want to click on there and go to My Account. All the way at the end is the integrations. You will see ZipForm. I'm sure they're hoping to add more later on, but ZipForm is the first integration. It will either say disabled or enabled. Either way, I would encourage you just to click here and make sure that your information is inputted. So you're just putting your username, password for your ZipForm account, and then this button needs to be enabled. If you haven't done that or already done that, of course, you can always just save the information. Don't forget to do that. And officially, then you will be integrated, and the integration will be done. Let's say the success thing. And then anytime you're in a field here in SkySlope and you need to get back to the main menu, go ahead and click on the logo. That always takes you back. Century 21 New Millennium logo takes you back to the main menu. We want to be in working documents. There are 3 sets, especially now that you have the integration set up. You will have a ZipForm folder, essentially an area, and this will be where your ZipForm docs are. There are personal docs, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Office docs, which would be things that your office might share. We don't do that very often, but you may find things in these folders, as well as what we want to focus on is this ZipForm area. You see that it was thinking right there. That's because this integration is very interactive, as in almost simultaneously, if you are in ZipForms, that information is transferred over into SkySlope, and vice versa. If you're in SkySlope, the information is transferred over into ZipForms. So it's definitely something that's, almost simultaneously that they're going. So it's always updating and updating its information. So if you're starting here, you're ready to go. We're at a process where maybe we want to start a listing, getting the information, sending that, filling out the forms, sending them off to our clients. So you can do right here, create transaction in ZipForms. This asks for basic information, right? So if we wanted to do, let's see. Okay, so that's the transaction name. Maybe that's the client address or the client themselves. There are more fields here. If you wanted to fill this out, of course, that would be fine. But there's another section to fill out as well. Anything you put here, though, you will actually, it will transfer over. So if you did know the person's first name, or of course, you know the client's name, but inputting that information here is just fine. Okay, so instantly, it's giving me a list of forms. Of course, you do want to make sure you're in the correct library. But if we're just doing a new listing, I'm going to go here. Listing agreement, check that box. Let's say I also want the residential property disclosure statement. Check that box. I'm going to go back here because I want the affiliated business arrangement for Virginia. Check that box. And then click below here, add. So I didn't even have to worry about whether the other boxes were checked. Of course, it pulled everything over that I checked. If I wanted to add more, I can also just add a form. This time I think I do want to add one more. I'm going to add the cover sheet. So from here, you can open this right up into ZipForms and will actually open up another page into ZipForms. Thinking about it. So this everybody recognizes, right? It took me to the first form that I had chosen. You can see that information is filled out, right? And here, as normal, you will want to basically just continue on, right? I would love to just show you. Again, we opened up into a form, so if you wanted to actually see the forms list, just go to back. This cover sheet, really, if you haven't seen this before, I would encourage you to use it. It is interactive, so any information you put here will actually fill out the forms as well. So any information, it's many pages, 4 pages, but whether you're representing the buyer at this point or you're a seller, the more information you put in here, the easier it is to store it. Anytime you add any of this information added in at any point, automatically saves and updates the forms within the transaction. So again, this cover sheet is attached specifically to the transaction, but it's definitely helpful. I'm not sure how most agents do it, but certainly if you haven't used this form before, that is something that I think will help instead of re-entering information. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to go back out to a transaction that I've been working before. So in this one, you open the cover sheet. This is another listing. We had more information, right? This information filled out and so forth to actually populate the forms. So at this point, if your forms are populated, next thing would be to send them out for a signature. You do have 2 options. You can send it out through the e-sign within ZipForms, which is probably your DocuSign account. Or you can see we have 2 tabs open, so it never really left SkySlope. It just opened up an area within ZipForms, or a new tab in ZipForms. You could also go back to the SkySlope area and actually send these through DigiSign, which DigiSign is the digital signature service offered by SkySlope. Either way, it's kind of completely up to you at this point. I would encourage you to try out DigiSign if you haven't in the past. Similar to ZipForms, you can set up, or excuse me, similar to DocuSign, you can set up templates to make things automatically fill out. I personally think that DigiSign is easier. I just want to show you because of the click feature as opposed to the drag and drop feature. I am not a fan of the drag and drop, especially if I'm doing it from a device, a tablet, or my phone. So here, clicking on signature and clicking there, my favorite one would be here. Just a click, no dragging and dropping. If you want to resize it, obviously that's an option there, but then right here and click, you know, and click. It just, to me, it's so much easier than the dragging and dropping, for example. Of course, templates can be set up to where it's automatic. You know, you would tell that this is where a seller initial should be, and it puts in a seller initial. So that is certainly worth your time as well. I'm actually going to cancel out of this. Okay, so in my 2 examples, I actually did both. So I sent it out through DocuSign. You can see here's my DocuSign documents here. And I actually did send it out through DigiSign as well. When I sent it out through DigiSign, it came back into my personal documents, so my unfiled documents folder. This is it right here. Notice is that, of course, it kind of chose its own name. That's probably my fault. I probably could have renamed it when I was sending it out. And it did come back as a group. So this is actually all documents. All documents that I sent out for signature. When it came back through DocuSign in the ZipForms area, again, it just adds a new folder that's now DocuSign versions, and these are separate here. Now, I did say that, of course, when ZipForms, when you do something in ZipForms, it does talk to and communicate to SkySlope. So what happened here is that these, when they came back through DigiSign, came back in my personal docs. The DocuSigned ones actually came back in the files documents. So these were my originals. Right here are actually my signed versions. You know, it's not entirely clear, but they were different, and certainly by clicking on them, you can see that they're signed. But again, so this is where they came back here. So the next part, after you have a signed, you know, listing agreement and so forth, now everything is ready in this circumstance to go into SkySlope. Again, mine's a little bit different. You probably have a button here that says create listing. I just have to kind of open this up and actually click create listing. Okay, so starting by typing in the address, if you see there's a Google address and my ZipForm information, right? It even tells me when it was last updated, in case maybe this is a property that I've actually sold multiple times, right? That we all love those. So last updated, this looks right, so I'm going to click it. Any information that was in there, if there was a field to match, it has matched that. So put in the MLS, some basic information as well. I did not have my listing agent in here. I'm not sure if this would have pulled over. I would imagine so. But like adding, filling out the information in SkySlope, basically you are just choosing the rest of the information, right? So anything that's asterisk would be what you needed to actually fill out, right? I had not put in listing commission. I know that that cover sheet does have that information in there. List date, expiration date, I had managed to make in, and I believe I had even put a list price as well. So basically, the more you input in that cover sheet, it does talk to the multiple systems. So again, that cover sheet, you put that information in there, it speaks to ZipForms and the forms that are added to that transaction, as well as to SkySlope, at least initially when you create that new transaction. And again, no reason to create a listing or a new transaction until things are ratified. That's the step we're in right now. Everything's signed and fully ratified. Now we're just inputting the stuff. So I have this sheet. If I've missed something, it will tell me, which is helpful because sometimes, you know, depending on the screens that you're using, if you're doing this from your tablet, easy to miss. So it did input information. I did not have an email address for that client, but because it inputted stuff, I'm actually going to need to edit to add that email address because it technically was already created. Any more information, if of course, as normal, adding that information. And that was, what a shame on me, that bad example, right? Nobody tricked the system that way. We want those real email addresses for those real satisfied surveys. Okay, so we are at the point of adding the checklist. You know, this is probably not anybody's favorite part, but certainly I did want to show how to add these items, right? So we are here at the checklist. Let's do one thing. Let's go back here to ZipForms. Again, they're here, right? You could do, you know, I'm sure you're very familiar with basically downloading these and adding them that way from your computer, but I would say that that time is over. No more adding it, you know, downloading to your computer and adding up, especially, I mean, if you're dealing with a device and so forth, you're not wanting to take up that memory, that space. So we're going to completely ignore ZipForms now, and let's go to back here to the main page to working documents, right? There are two areas. Again, remember, this is my DigiSign. These are my DocuSign. So let's just go ahead. How would we assign these, right? I'm going to go ahead and just click on these. Once you click, you can see other things open up, right? So if you assign, now it's, you know, it's red, so that looks like an error, but it's not. It's just letting you know that these three things have been selected. What would you like to assign them to? Now, there is a transaction section. And scroll down. If this is a listing, your listing will actually be in this section. And again, I've already gone in and created that listing. So there is a transaction already, or a file already out there. Choosing it, saying search. And then here it is again, clicking assign. It took me immediately into the transaction, and now I'm here in the transaction section. Now it does, you know, basically it puts them right into the documents. That assign word is a little bit tricky, but understand that they're not assigned to the checklist item just yet. They're actually just assigned and put into the document section of the transaction. And that's helpful too, because if these were not split up, maybe you needed to split them further. But in these case, you know, I have these 3 documents are set up. So I'm just going to go right over to my checklist for my right to sell listing agreement. I'm just going to click attach, choose that and assign it. Residential property disclosure, assign it. An affiliated business arrangement disclosure, assign it. And there we go. That would be the end. Already assigned and finished with that. Again, that is from DocuSign. So let's just show how this would look if you were doing DigiSign. So we're going to go right back here. Working documents. You're ready to actually assign things. So we're going to click here. And once you click, see how there are more things come up. Again, you're choosing assign. And again, this came back as one thing from DigiSign. Same thing, transactions are at the top. Assign. So this is a little different. It took me back to my personal docs. It did that because what if I had more here? Now, of course, you could also just choose 3 at a time like I did before. But this time it took me right back to the personal docs. So I'm just going right back here. This is a listing, so it's in my Manage Listings. And it will be in my documents. So here it is right here. It's one group, so I want to split it. So listing agreement. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I actually chose the wrong one. Oh, just kidding. It's this one right here. So because I added the DocuSign ones, those are there. Okay, so residential property disclosure, 2 and 3. And then for 14 is the listing agreement. Yeah. Split and assign. You can now go return to the document section or go to checklist. I don't have any other documents I want to look at, so I'm going to go right to the checklist. In this instance, because I split, it automatically just assigned it to them. You know, it would be up to you whether you feel that attaching is faster or splitting. I mean, I think that a case could be made for both. But in this instance, I split and attached them all. And again, I am now finished. So I hope that this was a good explanation to give you a general idea of how quick it is. I mean, of course, I didn't have to wait for a client to actually sign, but you know, you start in SkySlope, you can pull the forms, you know, go over to ZipForms, add any missing information using that cover sheet as well. Send it out for signature. I would encourage you to try DigiSign. When it comes back, create the transaction and then assign the items relatively quickly. Of course, if you have any questions, I am happy to help. Again, I am Rachel Scott from the Gainesville, Virginia office. Enjoy the rest of your day.